Hello, everyone. Welcome to this live transmission. I'm very excited for this one. It's not the first time that Jenny Lee and, and I are together putting some dots, connecting some dots, and going deep into very important intel. So it had been a while, though. Yet finally, we did it. We got to we got to be together right now and sharing. So welcome, Jenny.
Thank you for having me. These
Oh,
are going to be interesting subjects that we kind of connected in a spiritual way of these subjects because I saw a lot of stuff with your stuff with Nefertiti's, and then I did writing about her for a long time. So it was just interesting. So it was all connected in many ways.
it is. It is. And actually, the first poster was focusing mainly on Nefertiti. And just before going live, you shared this with me. And I was like, yes, yes, absolutely, yes. Let's talk also about the underground circle councils of Earth and the Earth's crystalline body.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, interesting topics today. So, tell me, Jenny, tell me a little bit about it. Let's go a little bit first through Nefertiti,
Okay.
which was
Yeah.
who inspired this reencounter. So, what have you tapping into this such important figure of Amarna? And not only Amarna, I feel that the frequency of her consciousness has been underneath um, configuring a lot of what we call not only the primordial feminine, yet the very same primordial field, because we know that these beings, as the last members of the galactic community on Egypt, what we know today as Egypt, they worked a lot with plasma, plasma physics. They were
Yes.
trying to bring it or to keep it online before other type of events started taking place in Egypt. So
So the thing with her, I'll talk about. See, they separated plasma from us. They separated, and that's what Spirit told me. They said the soul was separated from the plasma because we would have been different beings. And this is why they put the plasma in the ground and in the ocean. And that was the thing that they showed me is going to resurface. And it has to be at a cool temperature to keep it, rotating and moving at a certain temperature. And now that's coming on the surface of the oceans and the waters and all this stuff. It was interesting how they had me recognize plasma because I saw it in a ship, and they go, Jenny, what do you think keeps that beings in a stasis like that for weeks? And I can feel the cold and the hot because plasma is at both temperatures at the same time, and it circulates. It works together. And then I was like, that's what it is. That's the plasma. And they're like, and that's what, because it keeps a coating around our soul and your soul goes back to memory of it when it's near it. And that's the whole thing. That's why they separated it from us. And so it's always been a part of us, but they took that away from us because we would have been stronger beings with it.
absolutely. It would have been a completely different reality. And actually, throughout all these topics that we will be covering, plasma is the one that unifies them all.
Yeah.
So, just a little bit of intro for the, I know that you beautiful tribe joining us have been hearing this word plasma here and there everywhere. We have been talking about it for a while now.
Mhm.
And plasma at its different gradients can be also related at its fundamental state can be related to ether.
Yes.
So as Jenny was saying, even though it cannot truly be, displaced from us as we are, our nature is plasma, and the field and the space, all this potential field of creation. This is one of the reasons why it was taken away from our memory,
Mhm.
like locked down, compressed it through this great amnesia, this amnesiac state that we went through, which is very much related to what has been taking place lately.
Mhm.
So much foreplay with the timelines that you get to fissure the space-time the fabric of space-time at such depth that then the awareness of what is taking place starts to become very confusive, because it's like jumping back and forward from different spatiotemporal constants that at some point it's like an overload of all that information.
Yeah.
So now that we are starting to remember as a collective about that primordial connection to that field of potentiality, is that we regain our sovereignty of creation, you know? So I do, one of the things that I did remember when I saw all these Amarna tablets and all these engravings where they would depict what later on scholars translated as the solar disk, I would say, no, it doesn't make any sense. Yes, the sun is super sacred, yet that's not what they are talking about. They're talking about a fundamental force and how that fundamental force is bringing life and actually can be used for the Ark of the Covenant, can be used for space arcs, can be used for our inner regeneration, of our biology, and how also it's the way that we truly embody that interdimensional nature, how we remember how to use it at its full potency. So, one of the things that I remember, and that is very much connected to also the underground field that we will be covering, is that it are the arcs, but not the arcs as the space arcs as the spaceships that are on the inner Earth. Also, the arcs as these capacitors that would be containing big amounts of energy, and that we would be used to as power source of spaceships, pyramids, temples, and so forth. Now, based on what we were talking before going live, how do you feel all that those forces, all those technologies that some of them are still here on the surface and that some of them are underneath? What's the role that they will be what's the role that they will have in this next stage of evolution?
The thing is we society pushes everything and separates everything. And now spirit go,
Mm,
everything that we gave you, all the keys, all the pyramids, all the downloads, all the information, all the ley lines, serpent mounds are all connected at this time. It was all a circuit system as one. And so I put all those pictures together finally, and they said, so, and then you had all these stargates and councils, underground councils that hid everything. So, and they were all in these areas that, which we kind of know there was stuff going down. But one of the biggest ones is in Washington, and that's where it's so deep down into that process. So those are all, it's like turning on the power. And I gave you the pictures of some of those in a circle of motion. I have them on Instagram and stuff, but the whole thing about it is everything is connected. The pyramids have to come online on the process. The ley lines come online in the process in the crystal grid. And that goes back to Nefertiti's. And the whole process, when that happened, we'll get into later of how that was presented to me, how important that was about her. And so all of this is going back online like it was before. So
Exactly.
our history has always been hidden in the ground. And they always said, do you really believe that this earth is just one circle motion? It is a puzzle, and these plates and change, and you don't even know if you're on the top or if you're on the bottom, because they tell you where you're at. The water's above and the water's below. And that's the whole thing with this whole grid. It's coming online. When that comes online, the sun changes, colors change, the animals move in motion, and they are ahead of the game on this. They'll come down from the mountains, come down from the rivers, and they will stand in a podium of light. Everything is connected. We can hear and sense that calling at that time, just like Mother Earth is doing it in that whole process of this grid that we're a part of. But what can't survive it is the negative. It's too strong for them to even be near it. And that's where Spirit says self-combust. All the negative will self-combust on this. They can't be in that frequency of that. And that is why they don't like the light. And that's why they hid the bells as well. So all these sounds, because some of these pyramids were actually sounds. Everybody thinks they're about, the history of below it has to do with a lot of them carried sound through it. And that was the thing that was important. And that there's 3 major pyramids in the world that are the most important, 3 of them, and one's in Egypt, one's in Antarctica, and so those are important when those come online. And they also showed me a green light from the sky would hit those pyramids on top above it. I have a drawing of it. And then there's an activation process. So
Yeah.
we're getting into that activation, and you could feel it. It's all lining up.
Yeah.
Nature's telling you it's all lining up, and
Yeah.
they can't stop it.
They can't. And you touched upon so many topics, so I will try to address to some of them because to keep the flow going. So, when you say about what was hidden, from the surface, it's like, why? Because you can make secret a lot of things and that are just in front of you. Like that's the way that they were coming from. They would put the biggest truths in front of us, and they would remain hidden because our perception, or the perception of the collective, actually was not ready to acknowledge or recognize themselves throughout those truths, or through those truths. So why underground? And you touched upon one of the main topics, or the most important one, which is the purity of the field regarding to the plasma currents that are taking place under the earth. So they knew what they are doing. It's our very same biology. We see the surface, but what is shaping the surface? And we will go through scales. Well, the first one, which is at a mesoscale, your cells, your mitochondria, your neurons, everything that is taking place inside this physical vessel is what it's shaping it outside. Now we can go deeper and deeper all the way to the quantum level. So now, in relation to that, when we truly understand how our biology works, then we will see that as a unified consciousness, we are meant to activate the pyramids, to bring them back online through our very same neurons, because those were, let's say, a hybrid, like reverse engineer technology of our same biology. So they would create those pyramids as the neuronal network of Earth. We also have, of course, the mountains, which would be the organic one. Yet the pyramids would be that reverse engineer technology to amplify the 0 point energy on the field, and actually continue to this greeting, this nexus, this cosmic nexus that would connect beyond or across scales. Because let's remember, like when we're talking about disclosure and so forth, the main thing or the first thing that comes to our mind is, okay, what's going to take place in the outside? What about what's going to take or what it's taking place in the inside? Because for us to even go into another reality beyond the overlay, fully beyond the overlay, we access through the Earth's core, you know?
Right.
So, and therefore, like accessing to the purest level of oxygen, the purest level of the water that we are meant to reorganize within our very same biology, not to mention the enlightenment of our physical body, you know.
Exactly.
And I know that that's our next state where our evolution as a species is heading to, to illuminate ourselves. And this is what it all comes about, that self preparation. And even I would love for you to tell me what you think about this. But if we talk about this at a quantum level, we will say that it's a process that is known as the light hybridization. So it's when molecules hybridize themselves and leading them to create their own light without accessing to the energy from the outside. So that takes to another level, which is the sun truly fundamental? Because for other life forms that are underground, it's not.
Mm-mm.
How? Because they are generating their own light because that's possible. And that's where
Yes.
we're heading to.
Right. So, like on here where it says the center crystal and everything, everybody thinks the center of the earth, but it's a crystal. It forms, it creates the energy was the main, and the seed of life, the tree of life, all that stuff is combined all together. And that's the main grid beneath the earth's core in that whole process, which always leads to one, people look at mountains and volcanoes and they just think that, and it's like, oh heck no. You look at it in the 5D, it's all connected, it's all camouflaged in what it's for. You know what I'm saying? And so all these grids that we are programmed not to see are in front of us, what it's all tied to. But now you got society, when they look at mountains now, they're like, is that a pyramid? Is that a pyramid? The rainforest is one of the biggest areas that has plasma, and it's covered up really well, but it holds that moisture down where it needs to be. And a civilization used that in so many forms, in so many ways. They showed that. And then they show me waters beneath our earth that were pure, and the nutrients of everything growing was a purity. It was so pure. And that's like the fountain of youth. It's all pure, it's raw and pure and good and nutrients. And that's the one thing they try to keep us away from, because if we discovered all this, we wouldn't be aging at all. We'd be stronger. And that's the whole thing that's changing. Everything's coming back online.
Exactly. Exactly. And now touching upon that crystalline nature, of the Earth's grid. And for instance, there is something that I always been shown, which is the Earth's core. For us to go beyond, let's say the solar system, and accessing to other constellations and of course other galaxies and solar systems and so forth, it's going through a black hole that the all the Nazis would call as the black sun. And that black hole is interconnected through 12 wormholes, main wormholes that connect all the way to the surface. And those were hijacked at some point to put these stargates, another type of reverse engineered Merkabahs, that once the and along with that, other type of hadron collider forms, placed also by other type of ETs. That's why they created the hadron collider now, because they were reverse engineering from that. And when it accelerated, then it made the space-time fabric, super entangled or fissured, rifts being created and so forth, and then the amnesia happened. So now, in relation to that crystalline heart, which I agree that there is that crystalline heart, what I also been shown is that the deeper that you go into that black hole is accessing to what also it would be known as the holes of Amenti, which some people name it or consider it as something physical. Yet for the times that I have been taken there, it's like your body start like not collapses, but it definitely moves from any overlay that can be had been placed on it, and then you start to embody from a state of awareness all the densities, and your body literally, like dissolves into the wholeness.
Yes. So
So
when you see that, what color do you see? Because I've been there. I want to know, what do you see when you're in that? Because
okay, so what I see is that as my body starts, it starts first as the overlays are being removed. I first see like this Cartesian plane, like my body is made of qubits. So as those start to dissolve, then my body starts to become into spherical particles that start spinning throughout all densities. And from all those densities, there is like all these gradients of light taking place depending on the level of density that it's connected to, until I become all golden, you know?
right,
What
yes.
about you?
So when I enter into that, the first thing they showed me, they're like, Jen, to keep yourself grounded, I want you to pay attention to the floor first. But that's going to keep you grounded where you need to be. Then I see all this emerald, and I'm talking emerald floor, emerald
Mm,
corridors, all emerald. And then there's this black, they call it black gold in it. And I was like, no wall is bare. There's writings, there's signatures everywhere on it. But you feel like you're moving with it, but you're not staying steady. You're moving with it. You're moving in it like a jellyfish process of taking it in, because the soul doesn't stay in one position. It moves in frequency and energy with the universe. And so when I got into there, then that was the thing. And then they start to show you the information. And I see the information, as they try to read it to you, and it's not English, and you see gold writing it down in front of you, because some of this is being created right in front of you as you're reading it.
yes, yes. And actually, I fully agree, because for me, the overlays, when they are, well, when I see myself in that Cartesian plane, is green, like this green that oftenly comes to me even when I have encounters with very specific galactic beings.
Mm-hmm.
But this emerald green, as that Cartesian plane starts to fade away, like that holographic nature starts to fade away, then it's reaching into that golden state. And the interesting part is that according to these Atlantean textbooks that have been barely released, is that the counter color, which represents the 12th frequency from green, the counter color from green, that emerald green, is a gray. But
Mm-hmm.
actually, that gray is, if we see what it represents, is the communion of black and white. So it's that representing that singularity. So I just wanted to bring this into topic. And also, there is someone connecting black hole is all around now. Yes, for me, in every atom, in every proton, there is a tiny black hole, a tiny black body. So that form of intersection is connecting everything, like there is a black hole nexus. Yet, what we are being called to tap into now is go beyond that black hole and access to that primordial field where the crystalline lattice resides, that liquid
Liquid
crystalline lattice
crystalline
that
light
is
that
waiting
is,
for us to
yes,
operate.
yes.
And like showing through the water mantles, like I have even having like a lot of visions of ourselves as these crystalline beings.
Mm-hmm.
And I do feel that it's part of the evolution of our plasma body, rainbow body, like the monks would call it rainbow body, which is more, fluid. There is high level of fluidity to the ether. But when we're talking about the crystalline body, is that level of physical entanglement at a quantum level with the whole space memory network. We become quantum drives. We
Yes.
knowledge, right? You were
Yes.
talking about that also, that ruby crystal, right? Yeah.
Yes. The ruby. And that's it's the whole thing with all this is connected. The keys were connected, the grids, and they were connected.
Are you there? Can you hear me? Is it me or is you're there?
Yeah.
I can
I
hear
don't
you
know
now.
what happened with that.
Okay. 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 So you were saying that.
So the keys are connected, and they were the first activation. And
Every
when
time that you talk about the keys, I'm sorry to interrupt, but this is the second time that you talk about the keys, and then you just go frozen.
right,
Yeah.
just saying, there's a lot of activation with those, and because each one has a higher understanding of the level of councils that are connected above us, and that was those events. They had to have certain events on Earth that had to happen before those keys were formed. That's the whole thing with it. So, and then each in between each level of the keys, which is a circular motion, is a crystal. They all focus on the middle of the center of the crystal because everything is around the crystal. Decisions, everything is made around energy, and it goes through and down through all those levels of that. And that's the whole thing with our Earth, the same thing, but it's been suppressed and confused and not told the truth. But now these everything's in activation mode. If you look around, I mean, what is not activated now? Everything is on an activation process. You
Yes.
can't look around and say nothing is. It's all ready to go. It's ready to go. The only thing I'm waiting for is the giants to appear. Like, okay, we're the last part of it because they were holding and sustaining one of the main keys, of that process. They were put in stasis for a reason, to be in the event of this process too, to hear. And in one of my predictions, they talk about hearing a giant's voice in the sky as the sun changes into a bright light, which is a yellow light that makes us feel calm and collective and healing. And in those voices, and then the sounds of the horns, which you would hear. We all are connected to that sound and vibration that would bring us to our knees and make us humble of just the sound and the vibration, because at that point, we all realize our world is about to change. And with the conscience of humanity understanding that, the world changes in an instant. Fear is gone. It dissolves.
Yeah. It's like if you could translate fear into another word that people can relate, where the core of it is, what would you say it is? Like, for instance, let's say fear. Okay, what is it mainly related? Let me rephrase it. What is the fear fundamentally related to at a human level that it has been so anchored into the belief system?
Flesh needs. That's how it uses it. It's that's what it controls everything by. That's what it puts fear in. It's what it's manifest by is the flesh needs. And this is the thing, let's do an example of the one of the movies, The Exorcist, and the Catholic pastor. He loses composure because he gets into that human left brain side and loses composure and doesn't stay focused. He gets into the flesh and worried about those flesh needs, desires, past seeds that they use against him. That's the whole thing. The negative uses the past. And that's the whole thing. When you are in the right brain, staying focused, and you're not connected to the left side, nothing can interrupt you or make fear upon you when you're in that warrior zone, knowing that this is going to come at you, and you're in a different conscience of understanding what you're supposed to deal with it and how you're supposed to deal with it. That's the thing.
You know something? There is a nucleus in the left side of the brain, actually in between the cerebellum and the base of the brain, and the cerebrum, between the cerebellum and the cerebrum on the left side. It is known as endorestiform nucleus. The only neuroscientist that actually discovered it has not published any paper after that. And what I have been tapping into is that, for instance, people that are highly anxious or in a very survival mode, they have, let's say, that part of the brain gets swollen.
Mm-hmm.
So I have been receiving as information that that area is actually, there is a very organic implant that was located to amplify the emotions, to amplify that part of the brain that could go into a chaotic state. Like you're creating then, but you're creating chaotically, like here and there and there and there. So,
Mm-hmm.
and that's very much why the right part of the brain had to like take action to bring in a stability. But, well, actually, just to clarify, it's not in the cerebrum, it's in the cerebellum, in the tree of life. So actually, when I say about the right or the left side of it, well, the left or the right side of it, when we're talking about the cross section, like how the energy, like for instance, the right hemisphere of the brain goes into the rest of the body, like the feminine energy, and the left side goes into the masculine. When it comes to the cerebellum, it doesn't go anymore through that cross section. The cerebellum stays in that side. So mainly what I want to express through this is that that implant was placed to suppress that potential field of creation, to make it a chaotic creation, and then for people to feel more comfortable by being guided. Okay, what
Right.
say? Okay, that's the truth. Because then they would be afraid of their own creation and manifestation, because it could be like a hose signaling from those energies trying to be imprinted of fear, mainly, which is very much connected to the reptilian brain, which is about the cerebellum. So that's the implant that is signaling all those frequencies into what we know as the reptilian brain, part of the cerebellum. And that it's like, okay, so I want to create, yet a lot of people is afraid of their power of creation, and then leading to, or was afraid to their power of creation, because that's not anymore. So even as organic as it could be, it's also very easy to remove it, to dissolve it. Once you stop nourishing it with your life force, it ceases to be like any organ in your reality. When it stops having a purpose in evolution, it ceases to be.
Exactly. So I haven't sensed or felt any like negative in for me to come at me, because they test us, that, and they put you in scenarios. And then I haven't felt that force in a long time, because you get to a point, you're like, it doesn't matter what you put in front of me, I can identify what you are and what you're
Exactly.
doing. And I
Exactly.
know that this is just a lesson, and I'm going to get through it, and I have control. And that's the whole thing, is people have to understand that the negative uses to pretend they're someone else that they're not. And then they want you to accept it. And once you accept that, then they have that control. That's the whole thing, is sitting outside the plated glass and viewing it And not being attached to it brings you power back to your own spirit. That's the whole thing that matters.
Exactly. Wouldn't you say that it's like making reality really simple?
Yes.
You know, after all those years of high complexity to try to pull the threads of higher truths, it comes out that it's actually very simple.
Right.
And that even fear to simplicity, once already been transcended, because haven't you heard about the phrase like it's too good to be true?
Mm-hmm.
No, it's good and it's true.
Yeah.
You know, receive it, embody it, experience it, you know. And I think that that's also another stage where we are heading to, because through this quantum field we're so powerful that any memory wounds of what happened in other stages of evolution here on earth, we are capable to shift what timeline we are connecting to as past.
Mm-hmm.
Like whatever happened, we can choose to be connected as a point of reference, as a point of origin, whatever we choose to. Are you there? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm here. I don't know why it's keep going out. I have two internets. It's weird.
Yeah.
Um,
Is it you? Did you see my image frozen as well?
yeah, it's just making a circle too.
Oh, interesting.
So
Well,
yeah.
anyway, so for instance, you were also talking about the prophecy that you tap into. Do you want to go through that? Into that?
So along, I don't know, about 4 years ago, I had someone. They actually, what they wanted me to do is they're like criticizing the Palladians, and I was just like, no, it's not even in their system. That's not how they were built. That's not how their soul is. They're not corruptible,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and that's the whole thing about this. So I went up and had a discussion with them, and they said, don't worry about this. I want you to look at this Ruby Lake. And I go, and then it says it's well guarded, it's protected, it's down deep in the ice of Antarctica, but it's going to go airborne. And I go, okay. And then they go several times, this is what it's an energy, and we use it for several sources, and it's a value, and other species want it. So, and then I sat on that, did the drawing for a while and everything like that. And then you start seeing this anomaly that started showing up. And I was just like, oh my God, there it is. There. And it keeps reappearing because it said it would. And also shows me its final destination is over Arizona.
Hmm.
And that is an area that it shows that that's going to be a manifestation place is going to occur in the sky and all over the world. And then it's the same thing as plasma. They show me the plasma is down deep in Arizona. So there's a lot of activity that's going to happen in Arizona that people are just like pushing aside. I'm like, no, no, no. There's a lot.
Oh.
So anyway, so this will create as we go into change the world. This energy is important. How it brings us into the golden age, but is well protected and well sealed. So, and everybody's starting to see this everywhere. And this is one of those predictions, and I had to draw it. You got to understand, when I draw this stuff, I'm on left brain, right brain, arguing, left brain, right brain, arguing about where it needs to go, how it needs to be drawn out. So then you deal with these ships under Antarctica too that have been self-sustaining beneath. They're self-sustained. They don't need anything, and it's down deep inside. And the other picture is on top where you have the ice and you have the ships up beneath, and then you have the fountain of youth that's in certain areas too. So everything's in
Hmm.
plates, and as things shift, they move plates, and then stuff happens in activity. So, and that's the thing, it's all changing. So and now this is appearing again, and they say it's going to expand, and it's going to get bigger. And the thing is, the media puts it out as fear, to fear this, and is nothing to fear. This is part of a transformation that we're supposed to go through. So the
Exactly.
value, the first process of it was thick, and now the process is energy, and that other species wanted to contain and control this. So the Pleiadians were protecting this all along. And this is information I didn't want. I was just like, I don't want to talk about this. And they're like, you need to talk about this. It's not, we don't get a choice on certain things, you know.
Yeah. Well, the thing is that let me show the other one that you also share with me. So, um, okay. So the thing is that stepping up to our power involves a high level of responsibility.
Yes.
And that level of responsibility, I think that when I was talking to you about what is like the fear mostly related to,
Mm-hmm.
I like that assuming your power, surrendering to your divine power, because at some point the program of you, I was talking about this the other day, like the original sin,
Mm-hmm.
it's the original choice.
Right.
And the fear that was imprinted the most was our choice. Be afraid of your choice, because then you will have to be responsible for it. And a lot of people would say, no, because responsibility to what brings is coherence. And for very specific factions, once we are coherent in a coherent mode, then we become unstoppable. And coherence is not like we need to be perfect, it's just a matter of owning our choices, regardless, you know? And that level of owning something, even this reality, they have told you that in order to own something, you need to pay a lot for it.
Right. It's
And
a given. It's
it's
given to us.
given.
Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. So that is a big distortion, because which is very much connected to the plasma, because you see that only very specific scientists, and no, you can only access through and create plasma if you have a lot of money to invest on these machines. And uh yes, that's one way. But actually, I see a lot of people that are creating free energy devices at home, and mainly in our own vessel. Like we are infinite source of free energy,
Mm-hmm.
so. And even when what we were talking about, when you were saying about the pyramids going back online, and I mentioned the neurons and even the temples, yes, they were creating sound, they were creating this harmonic symphony throughout the earth. And this is also so important, why we need to start or continue to develop the frequencies that are coming through our vocal cords.
Right.
This is why a lot of people is now doing light language, and all of a sudden, I don't know, but what I'm saying, but it's just coming through. This is just one example. It's not that you need to forcibly do light language. No, it's just a way that your vocal cords and the channel between your heart and deep within, connecting to the primordial field, is expressing those codes of the unknown without being scared of them, because unknown is not equivalent to something to be in fear of. The unknown is actually that potential field of probabilities when you trust in your own creation.
Correct. And the one chord frequency that they channeled with me a long time ago was the hum, and
Hmm.
that is the chord that's connected to creator. And that is, it's ongoing, and you hear the hum, and that's where when you feel it, it comes through, and then it opens up everything and is connected to the creator in that process. See, and that's the thing,
Yes.
so, and I taught a meditation on that, and then it just expands, and it gets stronger and evolves in a different way. So everything that we need resides within us. But if you listen to education, it's going to confuse you, because they don't want you to know the knowledge. They want you access. So your best, this is the thing, we all have been taught ever since we were born. They were Spirit has already put us in a boot camp of listening and testing. Of, are you going to trust their information, or are you going to trust ours? Are you going to go by your instinct, or are you going to follow the path? Because the structure where spirit stays on the path, stays on the agenda, that you have to complete the mission. And that's the whole thing about this. It doesn't sway left, sway right, it doesn't change its mind. It stays on the path of what to you, what needs to be brought to you to get to the next level. So we don't have to look for it. It's going to present. It always does. The happenstance situations, the people that just appear, it's all supposed to happen. And so we have already been in the class. We have already taught. And the black sheep of the family are the strong ones that are leading all the leaders. We are part of the new world.
Yes.
Because we've already done the work. We already know where we are going to stand with energy and lead. And how is that environment going to change? Because you can hear and feel the calling.
Exactly.
The information's already there. We're podiums of light that are going to shine with energy, information, and frequency.
Exactly. Exactly. And now that you're mentioning all of that, one of the things that when I, for instance, touch the ground, I feel all that crystalline structure as a crystalline neuronal network going deep through all the layers of the earth, right into the earth's crystalline core. So, like deep within that, interconnected at that level, primordial level, to the pristine field, to the original field, to the original field of consciousness of the very same earth, before there were a lot of overlays being put,
Right.
into this field. So now, when we talk about the Underground Circle Council, then there are different groups, galactic groups,
Yes.
that are on inner,
Yes.
and each one is addressing to a different purpose, like creating altogether a puzzle. Each one is a fundamental piece. So of course there are groups that have been trying to manipulate from the underground through even like creating all these anomalies that are not creating like high fields of plasma yet, like high fields of distortion, and actually trying to influence the purity of the plasma fields that are organically on the inner earth. So what would you say that it's the next stage, what's coming up now regarding to our connection and communication to these inner earth beings?
The plasma is going to be airborne. So what they showed me is the H2O and a different oxygen. So they said the winds from the true north, south, east, and west. That means beyond the ice, you will feel a freshness of clear air. When that plasma hits, we breathe in that plasma, there's an activation that starts within our soul, goes into our pores, and has the memory that begins again. So it's the air. And what they're trying to do right now is clear everything out. So, we're going to be knowing this because will put us in a stasis of knowledge. That's the thing that I'm hearing. So, and you're breathing in a very clear way, and you're feeling it, and you're going to see it in the animals. The animals are going to act in a very positive way from it too. But your body is going to react in extra energy, and why I'm not tired, and why do I look like I'm changing? Why is my skin changing? All this stuff is going to be a part of it. I don't think humanity is ready for that, of like, what is going on? So it's the air, because we have to be alert and to pay attention, and we have to bear witness of what's going on. We have to be alert, not, like the COVID things to keep us out of it, coherent. Now we're doing the opposite, and we need to be witnessing. So breathing it in, and then the air will change. But also how we heal with the sunlight, frequency changing. So all these colors that we've not seen before, you will see in the sky. And one is the one that I always talk about is the pink. I've talked about for years now. That is a calmness, a healing process that's going to submit. And then the one thing I talked about 3 years ago was a star. The star was white and blue around it, and that was ringing in the golden age, and it would come down. And I think and I have it on there, is a native, because there was 4 natives that I always see when I go past a certain level. Each one has a certain ability that are connected to that star as well, of knowing when that will be presented. And we're in the days and the times of this process coming. And and those natives were always behind a tree. They were always protecting, they're always seeding, they're always gay, so we're in that process too. So everything is having access now to our dimension. But also, we don't accept that things are changing from the morning time to a different dimension to an afternoon time. And that's why people are trying to put it together, and they're trying to look at it as one singular motion. And it's like, nope, it's changing.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. We cannot perceive reality as we used to perceive it. Otherwise, you will just lose it, or stay behind. The level of perception, we really need to think big. We really need to think in a non-linear form. Whatever we thought was like something impossible, it's quite possible. So
Yes.
it's like an upgrade of the inner language, how you communicate with reality, how you communicate with your inner field, how you communicate to to source, no boundaries. This is super important. If we want to bring free energy, if we want to bring plasma awareness, it's very important for us to go beyond boundaries. Yes, there are healthy boundaries, yet we're now going into a stage that throughout that primordial field, or that potential field of creation, is the full acknowledgement that there are no boundaries or limits in our creation. Once we achieve that, then we start ordering. Okay, so I'm going to create in this way, in this way, in this way. Yet at a collective level is now that acknowledgement that there are no limits. So if you at some point feel that it's overwhelming to feel the nature of your divine power, move forward, like move on, just experience it, no
Right.
judgment. Feel free to receive your divine choice. Whatever they have told you about that there is no free will, that pretty, like crossing your folding your arms crossed and watching your reality being created by an external force that does assume the free will, so free will equals free energy. So
Exactly.
yeah, so now for me, now regarding to my question about this inner earth presence, yes, tapping into, for me, acknowledging the electric field and how all those electrons from that pure state of oxygen are bringing us these huge amounts of dielectric fields. You can just give the order and connect to that oxygen. It's
Right.
not that you need to go to a specific field. We will get there. We will get
Mhm.
to connect with those mantles. Yes, this is why all the activation of the Earth's grid will, or nexus, will take place. Yet for starters, is just to acknowledge that you're already connecting with it. Wherever you are, communicate with the consciousnesses of those electrons present in the molecules of the oxygen, and start bringing them into your field. Start connecting with that primordial field where everything is. And, it's like just as a baby with the mother, just connect with your from your navel, with your primordial wormhole that connects you to that cosmic womb, that primordial field, and own your right of that, or that choice of connecting with whatever you choose to. You know, it's not like you are being limited, like, oh, you're trapped in a reality where you're just being given the cards and you are playing with the cards that were given to you. If
Right.
that's the reality that you think it is, that's the reality that you will experience.
Exactly.
Yet, if you choose to believe and feel and perceive and render a reality where you are the one giving the cards, you're the one receiving the cards, you're the one moving the cards, and so forth, then that's a reality that you will manifest. The field, there is one, well, there are many positive things about all this foreplay with the spatial temporal constants. As they are moving so much, you can actually anchor your vessel to the highest timeline. And while all of these things are moving around, you just bring in the energy of that motion to enhance and reinforce your connection to the highest timeline. Why? Because when you just think with the analytical part of your brain, with that logical part, you will say, oh no, reality is being jeopardized and compromised, and who has the arcs of the power? Yet, when you just see everything as particles of energy, of information, you're connected to that highest timeline and you're just saying, ooh, more energy. Okay, cool. Let's bring it. Ooh, more energy. Torsion it. Bring it. And if everyone, each one of us keeps on reinforcing that connection to the highest timeline, where we are already light, when we are already, communing and interacting with that purest form of oxygen, of water, and liquid crystal at its liquid crystalline state, that's what we will be creating. So, yeah, it's about surrendering to our divine power, and responsibility of choice is one of the biggest gifts, or one of the biggest virtues or natures within our interdimensional body.
Right. So Spirit told me, they said to me, I want you to understand that everything you've done, every path that you've walked, there that we have given the test in front of everybody. And everything is a value. Everything you've done has been tallied. Every voice that you've listened to, every path, everything that you've been given, everything that you did noble was tallied into understanding. So you don't understand the value that comes at the end of this process. It is a value of energy, it's a value of understanding, it's a value of honor in all that process of what you've done. And that was the thing when I started very young, seeing as a seer through things. I'm like, I'm not going to be part of that, and I'm not going to be part of that. And I just walked my path. Whether the stones or the swords came, I stayed on the path. I stayed on the agenda. And I don't think people understand, the ones that have really been riding this road for a long time, their value.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Look, if we take those beautiful words that you have said and bring them into our crystalline nature, like as if we were crystals already. For every beam of light that comes into a crystal's field, the crystal accepts it, and then redirects it elsewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because once light or information touches the crystal, the information won't be the same, and it's directed somewhere else, with now the informational field of the crystal itself, as
Right.
well, of the crystal field as well. So now, um, does source condemns any direction that the the light beam is taken? No,
Mm-hmm.
it's just information flowing in different directions. So when we understand that, it's easier for us to believe in ourselves, to
Right.
bring in full coherence the light that we are receiving and project it and refract it elsewhere with full confidence that the direction where it's heading to is the exact point where it needed to be at. The moment that programs of guilt, again, fear, and so forth start to come into a person's field, then that light beam starts to be shaky and then it starts to create entropy, not because the transmission was full of flaws, yet because that point of self doubt made it shaky.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I teach that a lot because this is the thing. The minute you get the message, do not doubt. Do not get in the conscience of doubting because it'll weaken it. And
Exactly.
that's then that team behind you is like they're not trusting it. They're not getting in this whole process of the counsel of the light. They're in weakness and they're in the ego whining to be right. But you're going to be right if you follow the truth and feel it in the soul. And that's why when I talk, I let it go through me. I just, and you just trust it all the way. You just are not at the point of analyzing, you're just allowing it to flow. And that's the whole thing about this is when you get to that point, there is no doubt. There is no doubt because the truth speaks clearly through the light. But people recognize the truth by the vibration, by the tone, by the energy, by the frequency. That's the whole thing. But, in that human sense side, they put that doubt in, and everybody wants to please everybody and do it the right way. But you got to push that left brain out and stay in the right brain and just let it flow like light. We're a filter of light. That's the whole thing. And then everything will change when you get into that system of trust.
Yes, I couldn't agree more. And actually, that's when we start occupying the place where we are being required to be at. Being in the right place at the right time with the right people and in the right way, doing what
Right.
it's meant to. And that's where harmony starts to be co-created among all of us. you know in that field there is no jealousy, there is no confusion, there is no need to actually look to the other side, because you trust that everyone is doing their own job, and
Right.
together there is that field being generated. I was even talking about this with JP throughout the week. Like when you see Nordics, when you see other type of let's say highly advanced beings, like even plasma beings, you see that unified field even through their own physiology.
Yes.
It's like they are exactly the same, mainly when they adopt a very specific shape, uh, or form, yet it's the frequency that they carry. And this is super important. It's not a uniform,
Mm-mm.
it's actually presence of source coming through you, focused on the same purpose. And I feel that some people like if some people are still afraid of losing their own presence or uniqueness by the unified field or the unity consciousness, it's nothing like that. Because even when you were talking about the keys, I was going to ask you, do you see a geometrical field around the crystal? Like another layer of that key is a geometrical code. Because in our case, if we take that example to ourselves, like being keys to our own inner universe, we have the crystalline lattice going on, and we have the geometrical field, which is unique.
Mm-hmm.
Your uniqueness, you will never renounce to it, because you hold unique codes that make you exactly who you are. Yet to reach to that truthful uniqueness, it's important for you let go of compromising your place, your safety, the idea of who you are. Let go of things that perhaps you have constructed that are not truly aligned to your mission, you
Right.
know, and stepping up into that level of vulnerability where you are not able to you're not in fear of compromising yourself, because as we were saying, you fully trust in your mission and you're just there.
On the councils, this is the thing. And that's why when I hear people say in the me's and the I's, I'm like, nope, because it's the we as one together. And so when that energy works as a council together, it starts to bring in a divine light, and then it moves in frequency, and each one divinely adds to it. They are not thinking me or I, they're thinking collective of us, of many. And then when you get in that energy together and you feel that amazing feeling, each individual is important in that process, that particle of
Definitely.
light. And that's the whole thing, is you still see that process of the me and the I. And I'm like, you are not me and I without them. I am not without them behind me, supporting me, giving me information. And that's the whole thing about this is and then it's your heart. This is the thing on the abundance of love. There's conditions here on love. Over there, it's not. It's abundance, acceptance. It's always fulfilled because it's not on conditions. Love is eternal and pure. It's a pure love. There's no conditions of that love on that other side. Here is taught on conditions of money, wants, desires, and needs. And that's why, for me, it's all the soul. I connect with the soul, and that's the most value important thing. All that other stuff you can create. Who cares? But it's the soul. You can't reside in that soul. You can't have to reside in that balance together. You can't force something. You know what I'm saying? So, and when people realize it's a collective of light, and we are in a humanity process of the collective of light of all of us together, creating us leaving and changing.
Yes, yes. And the thing is that when we talk about that unconditional love, that unity consciousness, that for instance, Nefertiti and Akhenaten would try to restore, to bring back online within the consciousness of, you know, not only Amarna, yet the uh, the whole country, to say it somehow, because of course at that time was not country, considered as country, but the whole land of Kemet, then it's not like unconditional love is not an idea of giving, 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 giving,
Yes.
conditioning yourself. Unconditional love does not unconditions on the outside and conditions within. Unconditional love is the capability of choosing and still loving,
Yes.
which is different, very different. Now that I brought Nefertiti and Akhenaten, there are some things that, for instance, and the 12 keeps coming, 12 and also the 20. Remember these stelas around the city of Amarna, that were placed apparently as these walls talking about the different ceremonial events or the laws that would be held in Amarna as a city and so forth. When we go into the technological aspect of it, then for me it was creating this unified field of coherence around that city of Amarna and that city of the children, and also to hold the in safety the Ark of the Covenant. Now, how does this that I'm bringing to the field relates to the underground circle councils? For me, Akhenaten when he removed the Ark of the Covenant, that was one of the biggest technologies at that time, not the only one. There are several Ark of the Covenants, yet one of them, when he moved it from the Elephantine Island all the way to Amarna, was because um, he was in communication with these inner earth beings that actually in at that moment the ones that he communicated with were in the red mountains. Speaking of red, the red code that you just mentioned, the red ruby.
Mhm.
So they knew that what would be taking place, and they told him to bring the Ark of the Covenant to Tel El Amarna. Now, there is something that I just want to bring into the field, which for me it's highly interesting because, of course, at some point the Ark of the Covenant was taken away from, was taken out of Tele La Marna. And after that, there was an event that made all the soil of Amarna gone death. Like when there is a radioactive action, you know, if you go now to Tele La Marna, you will see that the soil it's still in most of the place pretty dead. Like recovering from a radioactive event, something that could have happened with some of the technologies that they had. So I'm very curious to know what is that connection with Nefertiti that you were talking about.
Okay, so let me start from the beginning with Nefertiti's.
Yes.
So the thing is, the rings, when I saw Nefertiti's, Gaia, King Wachacha, all of these uh, warrior women of the past held a position on one of the keys. And then each one, I identified their story of the information, and each one, of course, had an animal, two of them guarding each one. Each has a different one. And in this process, she showed me the love, first of all, the love that she had for her partner and her people. That's the first thing, the abundance. But also the higher conscience that she had. She saw the vision beyond what it needed. But she also knew um, that they wanted to take her down. And so she thought outside the box on things. So she showed me if I took things with me, I would be captured. And I had to store them in compartments that were safe. So I did not leave with them. I hid them well within the walls. And so she showed me that. What was interesting about this is when I was talking, and she says, my body, how, because I pick up information and I go, show me an environment of the body. And she goes, it's not where you think it is. It's not where you've heard from it is. It's green grass. Green grass is where my body laid upon, is an illusion that it is somewhere, but it is not in that place. I left. I escaped,
Exactly.
and I did not take anything with me. And that was when I did the drawing, and it was really interesting when I had to draw because and I had the hat above. I mean, you had the picture of her,
Yeah.
and then how that was important, and the eyes were important, and then crystal, and everything was elusive, what she wore and all that stuff, seeing through her. And because she says this has to be preserved and it has to be activated at a certain time. Again, it has to be retrieved again. And it has to come back into a memory again. Yeah. When I did that drawing of her and how they had that above and how, you can look through her. Everything was a very elusive lace process, determination and information And that was the whole process. It's a part of the puzzle of this. So this activation is going to come from above again. It's going to come down, and then it'll be activated again,
Yes.
and her
Well,
presence will be known again.
we will be going to Egypt in November.
Hmm.
And yeah, so I told you already, like I have felt how there is a huge mission, and also bringing back online those codes of Ahenaten and Nefertiti, like that's a huge part of the task that will be taking place, not to mention the stargates and some of
Right.
the arcs, you
The
know.
stairway is the most important, she showed me. So the
Yes,
illusion of seeing something that you think is one thing and it is another, because we get wrapped up in what we think we see, and she knew that. So she was able to use that to her advantage. And that's
yeah.
what she showed me.
I remember when I was listening to people saying that her mummy was found and this and that, and even Ahenatens. I was like, they fled, they escaped. And
Mhm.
then when I was here in Mexico, I saw a lot of ancient alien artifacts with her image, with her very same headdress, like that crown, like that a cubic crown, like the one that you're showing in that image. And even depictions, not only statues, depictions of her
Right.
and of Ahenaten, and I was like, okay, this is very, very coherent. This is very coherent to what I have been reading in the field regarding to what happened to them next. Not to mention the what is known about her daughter Meritaten, and the connection to Scotia, and the land there. Well, it didn't end there. They still went to the Americas and started to expand the seats of consciousness. Here we even have a festivity. There is a festivity in Mexico where some like costumes have that very same headdress, and people wear it and
Mhm.
dance, so, and they say that there were the Spanish guys, it was inspired on the conquistadors. And I'm like, have you seen the indumentary of the induments of the conquistadors? They don't have those type of hats, you know so, or headdresses. There's much more to that. And I can see and I can feel the presence. We know also, this is something that I want also to mention, that they call Nefertiti the one that the beautiful one that comes from outside, as a foreigner. And one of the priests that was in charge of, at that moment when Akhenaten was a king, one of the priests that wanted to keep the polytheism, his name was Maya, as Maya.
Right.
And they found some Mayan glyphs in his tomb. So there is definitely a very important connection to Nefertiti and Mesoamerica,
Mhm.
or to the Americas. There is proof, there is a lot of presence also in their teachings of unity consciousness. And even the way that they would relate to the plasma force and the solar force was very much consistent to what Akhenaten tried to bring to Kemet, you know?
Yeah. So that was interesting when she showed me. She goes, you think my body's there?" I'm like, "Well, just show me." And then she showed me green grass, rolling hills and mountains in the back. And then she showed me gray and white hair. This is the age I lived a very long time. And that's was then I knew, And then I mean, she knew that she had to get out and planned it a long time ago. And so now, and that was to be preserved, and it is still preserved. And that's what she's saying. So in that process of all this activation, because it is the one crystal that activates everything.
Yes. Hmm.
Yes. So it's in that sustasis being able
Huh.
to be in that activation.
I'm sorry, what did you ask
When it's
something?
in a sustasis,
Yes.
in that position to be in an activation process now.
That stasis is coming a lot in the field.
Yes.
You know, we're talking about dragons in stasis. We're talking about Nefertiti. We're talking about these guardians in stasis as well.
Yes.
Very specific, like very archaic, like primordial consciousnesses that are in stasis through this plasmic field. And I mean, we talk about these technologies, reverse engineered technologies like medbeds that are all
Mhm.
about plasma, you know,
Yes.
plasma technology. And
Yes.
then when you were talking about putting ourselves in stasis, um, like, is this one of the ways that it can be perceived, as far as I, comprehended and saw it, is that the more that we activate our plasma body, the more that we are putting ourselves in that stasis, not forcefully, not moving, yet it's a continuous regenerative state where we are capable to rejuvenate, to heal, to expand our consciousness, at least in this stage of evolution. Because as you said, we are going through a lot of activations, and a
Right.
lot we are bringing back to this reality. Even when we're talking about artifacts, somehow it's like if they had been in stasis, every time that you bring them back through a cave, you're bringing them back into this reality, and they're fully
Yes.
charged in this
Yes.
cosmic field, bringing in all those codes back online.
Yes. Activation.
Yes,
And
yes,
then the memory
exactly.
comes with it. And the memory is activated. And that's
Yes,
what happens. And then it's just the whole process of this is the minute I get information, I trust it right away. I don't even care. I just let it lie where it needs to, and it always shows itself. The truth is seen in documentation, verification. You're going to see it. You don't worry about it.
exactly.
And that's the whole thing. Another thing is like the giants. I did a drawing 3 years ago under Iran, and they showed me how this one in a circle motion, and there was a gateway that they showed me on that one, and that they've been traveling for a long time, making sure one device that man was never going to get their hands on, and traveling through many times to carry it through underground spaces, you know, and it looked like a purple crystal, but it was shaped different. When people see that device that they carry with them, it looks like a club, but it's all sticky looking, like it has points to it. That was not it. It's an activation process. And so they showed me as they're carrying it through, and it's been going for a long time. And so it's another activation point. That's why the giants are in part and very important part of this whole process too. They're very intelligent beings, So and it so that's another activation that's creating, and I think, no one can wake them up. They are waked up by creator in that process that's going to happen. So I mean, they're very important, just like the dragons are very important.
Yes. We were talking about that crystal. I don't know if you have checked the images that JP has shared about the activating crystal in the arcs. Like each arc has an activating crystal, yet the one that he was interacting with is very much consistent to the description that you're giving about this purple crystal with a very unique shape, like very faceted,
Yes.
and in this um, kind of an egg or a pine cone,
Yes. And then
you
it
know,
goes down.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
exactly. Well, there you go. There you
Yeah.
go. And yeah, yeah,
And in that, with that activation, there's again, it's another Stargate circle motion before that is activated and put in that process. So so they it was really weird because I saw a circle of them, and then I saw this one admiral looking person that was knew of them, was communicating with them, and that was the strange thing about it, you know. So you have again, you have the evil side, and then you have the good side, and the good
yes,
side's up trying to protect, not to allow man to have it.
yes. Hmm. Okay, okay.
So it's important because everything has to be activated at the right time.
It does.
So
And that's when we restore ourselves to the cosmic time, to the
right,
true time, you know. And these stargates, I feel that they will be influencing for that to happen in a very, like everything, you know. Yet the stargates do play a fundamental role, because this is why they are so important to many of these governments or groups, private
right,
groups, because whatever they bring through those stargates, and even more, whatever the CERN groups like are running the CERN are trying to bring through those fissures, those rifts in the space-time fabric, because they are creating mainly portals bringing in energies or consciousnesses that at some point are creating all this distortion in the field. um, where, because now fortunately the CERN has, the LCE has been deactivated, so now um, stargates also work through plasma technology, you know, through
hmm
energy. So
right.
what do you say that will be happening with all those stargates that have been retrieved by some groups, and what is their purpose?
To realign it in an activation, that's, you know, in a bigger process of this. Okay, and, and it's the same thing as the pyramids are precisely placed where they need to be, and those people think those are supposed to be separated, you know. And I'm like, no, 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 nope. They're showing me line them up, line them up, line them up, line them up, and energy goes through them too. So they're always thinking a singular, again, putting separating everything and thinking it's only that it's one device that does one thing. And they're saying if they get aligned with the same energy, each one does a different level of frequency and opens up something, just like everything else with the stargates are precisely built for that reason.
Yes, yes. And now while you were talking about this, I was connecting, for instance, the way that these stargates reflect into our biology, you know, because again, everything goes at scale. So for me, if, like, there are different ways to represent these stargates, even as having portals, you know, connecting, you know, like the very same energy generators, you know, in our body. They are stargates that are bringing in energy from other places, you
Right.
know, upgrading us, recalibrating us, or other thing. So the responsibility of aligning the frequency, as you were saying, of those stargates, for me, resides through our heart, which in this case would be the crystalline heart of the earth. You know, so the earth has a very specific frequency. We know that it's very much connected to the Schumann resonance.
Yes, it is. And plasma is showing.
Exactly. And we can see that the earth is going through very specific adequations, actually moving a lot of energy to fully emit, you know, that unique frequency that it has.
Right.
You know that the earth's normal Schumann resonance is between 7.8 and 8 on the first ring. On the
Right.
second ring, it goes to 13.4 and 14. And on the third ring, it goes to 2021. And those frequencies were very much expressed by the Mayans, which were very much connected to the
Yeah.
Pleiadians.
Right.
We have the 7, which is the half number for 13. Then we have the 13, and then we have the 20, and those were sacred numbers for them. So now, what do you think that I would love to know? How do you see, for instance, that human resonance recalibrating the whole earth, like all the layers of the earth, all the way to the earth's crust, and how that is influencing the realignment to our true north?
So the netting, the gold particle, and see a lot of my drawings, they kept showing all the gold particle on almost all my stuff. And I'm like, that gold particle has to realign with Earth's heartbeat. And the fountain of youth has a tree with gold particles coming down upon the tree. So it's all lined together. See, and then everybody gets confused with the DNA stuff, and they get involved in the flesh part of, and they're like, that nothing matters about the flesh because we're going into a new vessel of light. Why would we care about bone, water, and blood? And that's to keep you enslaved in thinking that concept is important. It's not, because the spirit makes a choice to either be good or bad, period. In this universe, it has a conscience to make that choice. So as that realigns, and that netting that you keep seeing, that Trump keeps showing you, that gold particle realigning, and it's going to realign the human resonance, and it's going to keep that activated. It's going to be released all the way, the capability of it, instead of suppressing it.
You reminded me of the mufkuts, the white monoatomic gold that the Egyptian would make, and a lot of people relate that now to the Ormus, which it's hilarious, because then we have the Strait of Hormuz, which is all encoded in the very same nature of the importance of that gold particle, and of course there are different treaties in the Strait of Hormuz or the Gulf of Hormuz and so forth. But the point is that for me, these are all codes at, let's say, at matrix level. Every time that we're bringing these words, these groups of words together, what they are activating or what they are signaling is to a deeper code, which in this case is very much related to our relation to our own gold.
Right.
The gold that we are even capable to create, when we activate our plasma body, so that monoatomic gold.
So they showed me that, like the DNA strand, they're like, forget about that. Take it and put gold particles in it. That's where we go into the superhuman in the golden age.
Yes.
In that process.
Yes, and we become those superconductors of source information, those fractals of source. And would you say, like, because we have also touched upon in the other show, I think, about the plasma beings. Mm-hmm. And the plasma beings, for me, it's ourselves coming.
Reflection.
Read ourselves. Exactly. So to which dimension would you relate? Because for me, there are different type of plasma beings. There are the plasma architects, that are designing constructions of reality.
The makers, I call them the makers. Yeah.
Then we have the plasmoids, who also get to have from time to time like a physical body, yet they also get to transform and bend light for their body to shape shift. And also we have other beings that they have a physical form and they are in the transit of becoming more enlightened. They are glowing. They do have a form, yet they glow. It's more of a
Right.
glow.
Right. They can transform to any form. This is the thing about when people see, like, they say Jesus is, and it's just because your conscience level can accept that level. So your self-reflection, seeing that image, is because what they show that they feel that you can accept at your conscience level. So they adapt to it for each level that a conscience can accept without fear in that
Exactly.
process. So they can mold into any form at any time. So I think where you get into the process of the physical body and how it is and everything, and when we get into these higher dimensions, it changes with the atmosphere walking in and forming any form that we desire in light. And the plasma is an important part of that, to do that process, because that's the glue. That's the mold foundation of it, the cold and the hot and the form together in that process.
Yes. Yeah, like for me, reaching that state, I see myself, many times in the different levels of consciousness or densities, in my plasmic form. And if you tap into that version of yourself, because all of us have that version of ourselves, perhaps in a weaker at a weaker state, which by means of this is barely active, it's there, yet perhaps you haven't tapped into that version of yourself a lot. So the more focus that you give to it, the more that it will start giving feedback to you.
Right.
So when we want to create a reality or co-create a reality, because those beings function in groups, they are creating geometries. They are, as you were saying, it's not anymore about the I, it's about the we.
Right.
That's how they get to create all these lattices of reality, because they are working in a unified field. So if you start tapping into that version of yourself, you can bring in those codes to actually start creating your reality from that level of consciousness, you
Right.
know
So
yeah.
everything's connected. That is the thing in the universe, that everything is heard. Everything is, the gold particle is all a internet system. And that's the Lucy syndrome, as I call it, because
Mhm.
everything we hear, and you feel it and you taste it in a different way, and you're hearing, and that's the thing. And last 2 months ago, I went through a process. My ears were getting overly sensitive, almost like they were fine tuning, and hearing the lightest things, and you know and I noticed, like, uh, with my when I'm talking to someone, and you kind of tune them out sometimes because it's in a different frequency, but you're more sensitive to those lower frequencies. The stillness, we're tuning and changing on how we pick up everything, and hearing the slightest things now where we would not pay attention before. And when
Yes.
we know a voice, you're not putting much time into it because you already know it. You understand the pattern and what it exists in. But then you come in with these new frequencies of sound and vibration. Your brain is paying attention to the lightness of hearing it all. And that's why I call it the Lucy syndrome, because she's right about it. I hear it all. It's
Yeah.
concepting in my head at once and understanding the process.
That's a huge other code. Like, for instance, when we tap into Lucy, what is the abbreviation for Lucifer, which is the
Yeah,
light barrier,
right,
But then again, like, what is truly that?
right,
Because I'm not talking about any specific archetype. I'm just talking about the meaning of the word light barrier,
right.
like that who carries light. And if we say that there are plasma beings here and there, and we are heading there, we will all be carrying light. The very same with Ophiuchus. Ophiuchus is carrying light. It has the serpent, which is the energy. What was
Mhm.
hidden from the zodiac sign, Ophiuchus, the 13th sign? So they try to put all these codes of us being light in shame, in fear, and in no, oh, you cannot be equal
Mhm.
to Source. Well, I'm an extension of Source, and I
Right.
want to honor the divinity of Source by embodying the highest version of myself. You know,
Mhm.
so, and Lucy was showing, like that level of being interwoven into the field, perhaps in a different way, as you were just saying. But the thing is that, as crazy as it might sound, perhaps for some of you, I find it like very much likely for that to be. This is why I'm expressing it. Like, we are meant to bring heaven to earth.
Right.
By means of this is reaching that level of consciousness where we work as a team, and that team is capable of being harmonically intertwined, for instance, to the pyramids, to the temples, and so forth, and bringing them back online and projecting fully feedback back and forward as it was in those times at its peak, before the
Right.
fall, where there was a continuum of 0 point energy flowing all the way from the waters into the surface, like deep into the waters and to the surface and into the minds of the people, of the beings that were present at that time. With what purpose? What could you possibly be imprinting on the pyramid and the pyramid being printing on you? Presence. Presence and coherence.
Mhm.
Now, there were other type of technologies that would also be bringing packets of information into the grid coming from other more advanced forms of intelligence, such as the plasma beings and the nine and so forth. And then those codes will be imprinted on the pyramids. And again, back and forward, because there was nothing like, ooh, am I projecting my consciousness to the pyramid? What am I projecting and what I will be amplifying? Am I going to amplify the disruptive pattern that I had when I was, you know, 13 or whatever
Right.
years old? No,
Right.
it's that level of consciousness that your presence is so much incoherence that you're creating continuous negantropy in the field.
Right. It does. And that's the whole thing. I mean, if people can get into the thought and understand the thought, and that your thought has power in a direction right away, that's the most important process. So we have to get into that process of that thought.
Exactly.
So if you trust, it's the biggest thing. And then that changes.
I agree. I agree. So now tell me, where can people find you?
Well, it'd be JENNYSSIGHT.net. Jenny's site with two S's. And then, you know, with the teachings that I do, the remote viewing I do, the remote medical that I do, missing persons, all of that stuff is, and I just, I prefer people to go and read the information and then make a decision from that process of things. And then, of course, there's Telegram and Patreon and all that stuff. But, that's the whole thing, is just getting the information to the people that need to have it so they can flourish. I'm about teaching independence, not codependency. I want them to see it. I want them to perceive it. I want them to see it with their own eyes and feel it in their own soul. That's what we're here to do. So they can go through the experience themselves. It's not what I can describe, it's what they can pick up and do it for themselves. Independence.
I couldn't agree more. I think that the all those tendencies coming from leaders that are generating or keep on recreating or enhancing the need in people that come to them to receive answers, is more about find your own answers, listen to your own answers. I'm here to remind you, because otherwise we're just reinforcing the need of someone choosing for them or telling them who they are, what they came here for, instead of them choosing to see themselves for who they truly are. And this is critical.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is so critical because we're talking about the finest membrane of humans, of all beings, which is choice, which is the clarity of remembering who they are, and that vulnerability of self trust.
Exactly. And then
You know,
you teach them. And that's the thing when I do meditations, and I do a lot, but I do a lot. I don't teach here. And when I tell people, I always bring them out and above. And it's the whole process is they're seeing it before I'm saying it. And when they're in that energy together, it flows. That's the whole thing. They're seeing it before I am saying it. And that's what I want. Because then they're leading them to the right door. I'm just opening the doors and they're trusting those doors that they need to be in. That's the most important process, is that's what we're here to teach and guide and be conscience for everybody to come together and teach together and be together in humanity together. And this is the thing, I'll tell you what I see in the future for kids. And they keep showing me the blue coil children. And blue coil children, they show me this blueness, but this lightness goes through like a DNA of the gold particle through them. And then I see it moving consistently all the time. And they said these children will be highly intelligent. So when I say the Lucy, it's just the movie I refer to as high as that conscience goes. You know what I'm saying? So what we see our kids at now is going to be minor compared to how these children will be in the future. It's all about evolving. And I think humanity is so fixated on the AI, and it's just like you're using it as the crutch to not evolve. We have to evolve. And to suppress the conscience, we have to. I'm looking forward to all the future technology, all the advancements of things. And I do remote viewing on the stock market and financial, and it's been dead on that stuff. And the thing was the gold, the silver, now the copper I did, and then the higher technology, and it's paying off on that stuff. And that's the whole thing. That's the future. I mean, it's changing fast. I can't hear you.
yeah, it was muted. Yeah, I remember that since 2 years ago, I was like, I want to buy gold. I want to buy gold. I want to get prepared, be prepared, be prepared. And now that I see all of this, because we're going back to the origin, like, tell me, in a true reality, how can something that is an illusion can be the foundation or holding the arcs of power for our reality?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, I'm not, and I do respect all the innovations that are taking place because they happen for a reason, which for me, it's also super important to acknowledge. For me, that's perception of source. Everything was created as a feedback for a sacred purpose. So
Right.
now, how we choose upon that, that's up to us.
Right.
So for me, like, having that bridge in between between intelligence, between science, and between the spirituality, for me, is actually reaching that singularity, because there is no separation between them,
No.
just concepts that have tried to be divided. People has tried to divide them. Why? Because when you put them together, it's a lot of power, because you're explaining through many perspectives, one point. And when
Mm-hmm.
you explain through many perspectives, one point is a higher truth, which is what we do as a collective. It's
Right.
not about fighting over different truths. It's about finding the point of communion between them all, because they are always interconnected. We just need to find the way that they are connected. And for me,
Exactly.
that omnivision, it's that perception of source. Now that you were talking about these kids, it's like, why are all these blue liquids being shown, even like in the movie Lucy, you know,
Mm-hmm.
what was
Right.
that came into her body? Blue. What
Right.
is blue methylene? The blue liquid. I keep on being shown blue liquids coming
Right.
to the earth's into the human biology and upgrading them, you
Right.
know. So there is something also huge happening with that code. We have the blue sun, you know, like the blue sun has been shown to me, you know, and it's very much related to the solar codes that will the it's the water sun, but it's mainly about the solar imprint in the liquid crystalline lattice of the water. You know, it's that upgrade through the solar frequencies happening or taking place in the liquid crystalline lattice of the water. Why? Because we're talking about the communion of fire and water without imposing within one another, yet finding that alchemical marriage, you know. And even in the I Ching, we see that water over fire over water is incompletion. Water over fire is completion. So we're talking about the alpha and the omega.
And the whole process of that, you know, where that's why it's important to be in the stillness of not being a part of the 3D in a way of fear. You can observe it, you can look at it, you can analyze it, but don't attach your emotion to it, because you're looking at everything as it's completely gone and dismantled in this process. And
Yes.
so when it all goes down and you've accepted that and you understand that enlightenment of that, you're just waiting for the whole process to, you'll become this calmness in the process because you acknowledged it. So you got the hysterical side that they're going to go into, which is, you know, the ones that are not awake in this process. And then you got the ones that are just in the calm stillness, walk through the fire. They're the ones that are going to be leading the podium lights towards the direction of light.
Yes. And with a centered heart aligned to the true
Yes.
north, you
Yes.
know. Yes. Someone was asking what's the blue sun. Yeah, well, it's also very much related to the sun of Alcyon, you know, because we as a solar system, our true center is the photonic belt of Alcyon, thus Alcyon. So the Mayans knew that. This is where their calendar comes from. And the famous 2012 prediction, to what it truly is about. It was talking about entering to the photonic belt of Alcyon and going through this process of 12,000 years, and then going back to out of the photonic belt of Alcyon, and then another 12,000 years, which is very much connected also to other type of cycles of Earth's evolution, you know.
Right.
So yes.
Well, we're going to have to continue with this subject again.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So much to talk about.
There is a ton.
I know, but I'm so happy we covered like a lot of topics.
Right.
Yes, and thank you so much
Yeah,
for.
it was great. We'll have to do it again and we'll get into some more deep stuff and everything like that. And like I said, a lot of my pictures and stuff are on my Instagram because it's easier to display all that stuff in there in a way when I get those downloads of information, and then my Telegram. But, you know, and I always share it with you too on the information to see what you're getting versus what I'm getting on the information that's coming. But we are going into exciting times of calmness, I believe.
I agree.
Yeah.
I
So
agree. Yeah.
it's all good.
Let's enjoy the ride. Let's enjoy
Yes.
the ride and accept bliss, to embody bliss. Um, because Source speaks in very simple terms.
Yes, he
So
does. Yes, he
thank you,
does.
everyone, for joining us. Thank you for all your beautiful comments. Thank you, Jenny.
Yeah.
Uh, I had so much fun. And
Yes,
yes,
it
we'll
was great.
see you again. Um, and sending a big hug, heart to
Yeah.
heart. And we'll stay, back and forward into
Yep.
with codes. So until next time, HUNUH. Oh,
Nice.
and just one last thing. If you want to see all the events that I will be presenting at, these conferences, like the upcoming one in Sedona, um, Rising of the Stars, then we have the conference disclosure in Mackinaw, then Sacred Tour in Chaco Canyon in September. You can just go to my website, to my Facebook page, my YouTube channel, Instagram. Everything is linked in the link tree. Also, my website. I will be opening really soon a landing page with all this information. So happy to see you there in one of these events, upcoming trip to Egypt as well. So thank you so much again. And now, indeed, until next time.
Bye.